Just have a couple quick follow-ups, and then I'm ready to wrap here as well. But the issue that Senator Manchin has raised, the impact of climate change and what we're seeing, whether with winter sports and snow coming later, or just not as good as snow for skiing, for snowmobiling, the like, for dog mushing, we recognize that change has impact. And so I think several of you have mentioned that one of the things you'd like to see with the agency is a little more flexibility as they are dealing with this, recognizing that the season may not be the same calendar that the agency has been operating off of for the past 25 years. And so I think that is important to recognize. Senator Wyden said something in just his conversation. He says, you know, the recreational season was beginning. I want us to think that the recreational season is 365 days a year. And in some parts of the country, that's a little bit challenging, and it's like sports. You move from one different activity to another, but it's something that in Alaska we have long sought to build is greater winter tourism opportunities, because we think we have extraordinary things. Right now in the state of Alaska, everyone in the state is following our biggest winter activity, which is the 1,100-mile Iditarod race. The winner got to Nome yesterday, 9 days and some odd hours. But you think about that, and some might not think that that's recreation. It's a lot of hard work, but it is an extraordinary part of not only of our state's history, but it is something that the tourist wants to see. When they go out to Juneau, they go up on top of the Mendenhall Glacier, and they're able to take a dog sled ride up there. But how we can be doing more to help these rural communities, again, or these places that are just smaller, they need to be making money not just in June, July, and August. What we hear an awful lot, and Dan, you probably know a lot of these folks, they work real hard in the summer, and then in the winter, we don't have that influx of tourists, and so they go down to Costa Rica, and they'll be the river guides down there. It's a pretty nice life. But what we'd really like to do is attempt to build out these opportunities in another or extended season, move out this shoulder season. Do any of you feel that, again, trying to get it back to the things that we can unravel here, are there issues where you have agencies that just aren't used to dealing with these new asks? For instance, we're up in Alaska, we've got more that are interested in doing heli skiing opportunities. Well, we just really haven't had much opportunity before, so we didn't have the people that were focused on it. And so now when we get to the permitting process, again, I'm rambling a little bit, but I'm trying to determine if process-wise we are limiting, the agencies are limiting our ability to try to expand more into the shoulder season to create a more year-round economic opportunity. Comments on that? Dan?
Yeah, thank you, Senator. I'm familiar with the heli skiing challenges and the challenges of planning for new recreation opportunities. And I think that part of that derives from a planning effort that has been piece by piece. Okay, we'll plan for small ships. Okay, now we'll plan for hikes. But I think that there might be an opportunity, and not something I'm very familiar with, but would love to talk with your office more about, are there opportunities to think collaboratively on the large scale so that we're not finding our permits ending a half-mile away from the beach because no one had done the important NEPA work to think about the interior of the island, for example. Certainly the agency has a responsibility, and it's an important one, to do that analysis, but I think there's a chance to think big scale and long-term about recreation. And certainly winter is something that we're focused on in Alaska, and we do see our seasons growing, both in the fall and the spring as well.
That's a good thing.
If I could just share a quick anecdote with you. So I had one of our members was interested in providing a new opportunity, as you described, and the response he got from the agency was, this isn't a bad proposal. It's actually got a lot of merit. But we just have so much required work to do that we don't have time for discretionary projects like this.
So
Now,
they view it as discretionary.
yeah, so now when did outdoor recreation become a discretionary project? And I think if this body could really change that conversation to make this an intentional part of the priorities for the agency and not just discretionary, that would be a huge benefit for these communities across the country.
Good, important.
We have a small community in central Idaho that used to have two populations when you drove in to their town. One was summer and one was winter, and it declined immensely in the winter. That has changed because of snowmobiling and winter sports. Snowshoeing, people are now coming to this small community, and it's actually enlivened. It's given them a winter economy, and it's saved them year-round. The Forest Service will never be accused of being flexible, and they need to become advocates of adaptive management. They need to respond to the new forms of recreation. Many times you'll look into their forest plan, and in the standard they will say no new forms of recreation are allowed. They simply have drawn a line, and that stops progress. It stops these small rural communities that are literally starving. Their schools are crumbling, and they have all the resources around to build an amazing economy, but they're not allowed to because the Forest Service simply will not respond accordingly. And he's absolutely right. They need to understand that recreation is the largest use of the federal land. It's the future for the economy of the rural communities.
Let me ask on that question, because I know that certainly in the southeast area, what I've heard from others is that you've got a lot of area around you, but with the permits and the process that is out there, more and more outfitters and guides are being pushed into the same areas, and that you're not seeing other areas that are being opened. Limitations on, if you're the new outfitter that wants to come on, you really don't have that opportunity to create your own small business there. Mr. Kirkwood, in terms of what we've been seeing, is it getting any better? Is it getting worse in terms of just kind of the congestion into the same areas? I know that we hear this coming out of Ketchikan a lot, where you have a few areas where those who are getting off the cruise ships can go do a small float plane ride, touchdown in a few chosen lakes, but it's very limited. And so what they're seeing is just increased pressure there on the limited number of permits.
Yeah, thank you, Senator. And, the Tongass is such a large place, the largest national forest, but when it comes to the recreation resources, I think in the northern part of Southeast where I live, we see a lot of crowding as well. And that's because the places that are both beautiful to hike, are a good place to anchor a boat, you actually start to whittle down to a handful of really good places. Now, as our tourism season has expanded, what some are calling Alaska Awakening in April and May, we're now seeing more visitors than ever before early in the season. We have folks who want to go into the wilderness and go on a hike in maybe some of the same places where a bear hunting guide is running their operation. And certainly we have no argument with that, but those are two very different experiences that neither wants to participate in together. So this year I can report that leaders, or I would say innovators in the Forest Service, have brought the bear hunters and the small ship cruise guides together. Good. This has been a great success for everyone to learn about their different businesses and to create best management practices that have built on other programs like the Wilderness Best Management Practices in Tracy Arm, the Tourism Best Management Practices in Juneau, that have really been successful at helping people stay out of each other's way and provide that very classic Alaskan experience.
Couple final, I know I said my others were going to be the final, but Whit, you mentioned the need for digitization, which just seems so basic and common sense. So making sure that we we address that is something that you would seemingly think would be easy, but it does appear that something as just routine as that could actually help facilitate some of the issues that you have raised in your testimony and with the report that has been prepared and handed down. Dan, you also mentioned the just the metrics and making sure that we are that we're gathering the data and understanding the value that is coming here. In terms of the metrics then that are currently being used, is it naive to assume that the agencies collect this and that they use the same metric, or is this part of our problem?
Thank you, Senator. In advance of coming down here, I spoke with a friend who works at the Forest Service and asked for what some of the metrics they were responsible were. And so for a place that has visitors coming in increasing numbers with crowding and infrastructure issues, the response was, well, the metric I need to meet is I need to create 7 new recreation programs. Okay, what does that do? Where does the rubber meet the road? Why are we not measuring things that will have the positive impacts? And I think that there are so many of them, that new metrics, like I said, that have already been developed for piloting in Region 10 with data the Forest Service already captures will be really helpful for them to tell us, to tell you what they're doing and how they're succeeding. They can deliver incredible success for us. They have, and they can continue to. They deserve credit for it.
So others, do the agencies, is there a consistency in terms of the metrics, do we know?
I mean, I would add that the Forest Service has a national visitor use monitoring program, and it's a standard methodology they've used for many years, but it doesn't capture the nuances of a lot of the different activities that are happening out on the national forests. And it also, I believe, they don't currently do a sufficient job to look at the quality of visitor experiences. So it's not just the number of people that are going out there, but what's the quality of the experience. And they're doing some work in that regard, but I think we could do that in a much more intentional way.
Well, you've given us all some really good feedback here this morning, and again, I noted the five reforms I think that you are suggesting, Mr. Fosberg, that I think are some things that the committee can look to in terms of, you mentioned the BLM disposal criteria within FLTMA, what more can be done to just really understand the inventory issue as it relates to BLM and Forest Service. I think we've got some things to look at with regards to the permitting, the metrics, but very, very helpful. I think there is a keen recognition that, well, at the same time, many of us as users are just out there for fun. The men and women that help us get out there and have that fun, whether it's on the river or on the mountain or the outfitter who's making sure that you've got your hunting permit and license, it is a real economy for them, and this is a healthy, great way to utilize our lands in a way that we can all enjoy, but also gain extraordinary economic benefit from. So how we help facilitate that, how we make sure that it's not our agencies that are actually holding us back. We all appreciate that there's a level of regulation that is smart and makes sense, but we also want to make sure that it is smart and makes sense. So thank you for the suggestions that you've provided to us today. Senator Risch had to go to another committee and has asked that several questions be submitted for the record for your response, Ms. Mitchell, with regard to winter travel, access, and recommended wilderness issues. So you'll be seeing those. Other members of the committee may also wish to submit questions to you for the record. So we would look forward to those responses as well as all you have provided for us today. With that, we thank you for being here and thank you for the opportunity to continue this dialogue as we work to access our treasured federal lands. Thank you so much, and the committee is adjourned.